Hey y'all, it's Erica, and I'm here today to do a dual review of Fun Home, a family tragicomic, and Are You My Mother, a comic drama, both by Alison Bechdel. So I originally found Fun Home a few months ago. I decided that I wanted to start reading comics and graphic novels, but I didn't really know where to start. It's a very daunting world to jump into. And so I just did some Google searches and I was like, where to start? And this was recommended for people who really like literary fiction and reading classics and things of that nature, but want to get more into graphic novels and comics. So I found this. I went to the bookstore and they luckily had it. I went home, read it immediately, read it in one sitting, and it was amazing. So Fun Home is a graphic memoir. The author, Alison Bechdel, is a American lesbian cartoonist, and she does the comic strip Dykes to Watch Out For. And I'll actually link her website for that down below because it's a really cool website. And this book is a memoir about her father and their very complex relationship. It was published in 2006. It received a lot of praise when it was first published. It was named Time Magazine's #1 book of the year that year, actually. And it was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award in the memoir biography category. So it's about her father and their very complicated relationship and his relationship with the rest of the family. She talks about how her father is very distant and they don't really get each other. And eventually she starts to discuss her father coming out as a gay man. And this takes place in the late 60s, early 70s, I believe, maybe mid 70s. Through those 2 decades, which was a very turbulent time to come out as gay, still wasn't widely recognized or accepted. And then she talks about his consequential suicide. None of this is spoilers. You get to this very quickly in the first few pages of the book. And then it also details the author herself coming out as well to her family and how her dad receives that. And it's a very interesting look at quite a dysfunctional family. Hence the subtitle, a tragic comic, which I think is a bit of a funny play on words because it's also a comic. This book has been criticized, I know, for being pretentious, which I don't really like to use the word pretentious in reviews, and I don't think it's a pretentious book at all. I do think that the writing is very pedantic. Alison Bechdel is very well educated. She reads a lot of classic literature, and you can tell. She mentions authors like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Marcel Proust, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Oscar Wilde. And you don't have to have necessarily read these authors to get into this book, but it is good to have a little bit of background on their major works, or at least be aware of their major works. But again, I really enjoyed this. I read this in one sitting, and the art is absolutely incredible. And I'll show you some of that. So, she does like full page spreads, kind of like this. And then, I really like the chapter breaks. They're just black and white. I really like the name of this chapter too, The Canary-Colored Caravan of Death. And then she'll do cool little things like this is a map of the area where she grew up. And it's all you can see in pretty much black and white with these bluish tints to it. And the detail in her drawings is absolutely outstanding. She has things like that. She drew little snippets from her childhood diary into here. And again, a really great book, touches on some really hard subjects like suicide and dysfunctional families and divorce and coming out. She does it in a very eloquent way. After that, I had to have her next book, which is Are You My Mother, a comic drama. And as you may have guessed, while Fun Home dealt with her relationship with her father, this book deals with her relationship with her mother. And this was published about 6 years after Fun Home in 2012. And it wasn't quite as well received. And honestly, I didn't like it quite as much as Fun Home, but I still would recommend it. This one deals with her relationship with her mother and how they're kind of distant from each other, and they don't really connect like Allison wants them to connect. While she was beginning to think about writing the book, she started transcribing all of her and her mother's phone conversations, because they live in different parts of the country, but they talk on the phone a lot. And so it's really funny, in some scenes they'll be talking on the phone and she's drawn these little pictures of her sitting there and typing everything that her mother is saying to her, which I thought was really cool and probably interesting for her to look back on as she was writing this. And again, the art in this is incredible. And where Fun Home had the bluish greenish tints to it, this one has pink and red hues to it. So, like this. And they're really cool pages like this in here. And she just does cool stuff. So again, I really like her art style, and I was doing some research on her, and what's interesting is that she has a very meticulous way of drawing. For a lot of the panels in both of these books, she either drew from photographs that had been taken of her family, or she would dress up as the person she wanted to draw, and she would pose for photographs herself and then draw from that, which I think is very cool and just shows the kind of time that she put into creating these books. This one, again, you can tell is a labor of love. Her and her mother's relationship is very strained. She also talks about her relationship with two of her psychiatrists, whereas Fenhome compared her life a lot to works of classic literature. This one talks a lot about psychoanalysts such as Freud and Jung, and she uses that research that she's doing on psychoanalysis as a jumping off place to start talking about her relationship with her mother. I didn't necessarily connect with all of the psychology going on in the book. Like, I'm not terribly interested in that kind of thing, so it wasn't necessarily for me. But it is interesting how she's able to, again, create that platform to begin discussing the relationship with her mother. She also, in this book, talks a lot about Virginia Woolf. You can tell she's a huge Virginia Woolf fan. And she cites a lot from To the Lighthouse and from Virginia Woolf's Diaries, which I now need to read both of those. And I really did like that. I liked that a lot. I would definitely recommend this, but this one I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Fun Home I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like Fun Home was a little bit more engaging and plot driven, and this one was definitely more about character development, which I don't necessarily mind. But again, the whole focus on all of these psychoanalysts dragged a little bit for me. So yeah, I would definitely recommend both of these books. Are You My Mother is often cited as being a sequel to Fun Home, which I would consider it more of a companion novel. I don't think you necessarily have to read Fun Home first, but I would suggest starting with Fun Home, because in Are You My Mother, she talks a lot about what her and her mother's relationship was like while she was writing and getting ready to publish Fun Home, which is very interesting because, she's exposing her mother's private life in this book. So it's interesting how her writing of this book impacted their relationship as well. If you are wanting to get into graphic novels or comics and you mostly read a lot of literary fiction or memoir or classics, these are definitely a great place to start. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Yeah, I'll see y'all soon. Have a great day.